Hey there again, Average Joes. Welcome back to the Eternal Struggle. I am your average host, JayMang. Today, joining me, as always, is my taller than average co host, Tall Shark and Handsome from PAX East. How are you doing today, Shark?
I am great. Everything is fine. Uh, just got back from PAX East. Well, I say just, but I've been home for 48 hours now. Um, Super fun time. Amazing venue. 60,000 of the coolest nerds best friends that you've never knew that you had. We'll talk about that later, though. I'm doing great. Had a great week in Eternal. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. I unfortunately didn't make it to PAX East this year. This is the first time I haven't been out in like 5 years or 4 or 5 years. And I definitely was feeling it during the event. Like getting con blues without even going to the con sucks pretty bad.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So you said that you did pretty good in Eternal. Why don't you tell me about your week in Eternal?
So when I was at PAX, I didn't really get to play much. I just basically did my dailies and then went and did PAX stuff or hung out with my friends that were there with me. But when I got home, I did a 12-hour stream where I threw together a deck with the new campaign cards and won a whole bunch with it, which always feels great. So we'll be talking about that list later. But yeah, it's a spin on Elysian. Yeah, super fun. How about you? What are you playing?
Quickly about your stream, that was hilarious. I like got on at 7 o'clock last night, and I was just like, Jesus fucking Christ, Shark is still streaming because I was watching you at work earlier in the day.
Yeah, I started at like 12:30 and I ended at like 12:30.
Oh God, that's just so much Eternal. I love Eternal. Obviously, hosting a podcast, I enjoy the game, but I don't know if I could sit down and play 12 hours straight.
Well, I did have like a brief break. I did Eternal for like the beginning, like the beginning quarter of it. Or I guess the beginning 1/3. Then I talked about PAX and the games that I saw there, and then I did more Eternal at the end. So it was a
Okay.
pretty nice breaking up.
All right, we'll circle back around on the PAX thing later on. So for me, as far as my week in Eternal, I had not gotten too many chances to play. I have played a handful of games since the campaign dropped, but I haven't really touched it yet in the month of April, so I haven't really played yesterday or today. Um, but I was trying some Ixchen builds out that I tried to brew up myself. They like, I probably didn't get enough games in to really judge them, but I didn't really care for, uh, I was kind of jamming it into the end of month aggro meta that happens every month. So like, I feel like that really skews how you like what decks you play and how you play a lot. So I may revisit that later on, but I think Vargo Red Claw is a good card, but I'm not sure it how well it fits into that control deck. But I'll revisit it some other time. And then from there, I tested out a new reanimator list using the Honor the Claws, which is fantastic for that deck. And then I added in one Desecrate. Like I replaced the Annihilate in the board or in the market, sorry, for a Desecrate, and I was pretty happy with that change too. Still kind of tweaking with the deck a little bit because of the ECL this weekend. Like I'm not real sure if people are gonna like catch on to the whole like 4 Vank Blade meta, but I think if we move into a 4 Vank Blade meta, the deck is gonna have to make some adjustments to its removal suite.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But
Definitely.
it's still very powerful, and I definitely think that it gained a lot from those two cards, Honor the Claws and Desecrate. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Anyways, so I want to go over real quick what our topics this week are. We actually don't have too many topics this week, although I imagine the second and last topic are going to go a little long. we'll see. But our first topic, we're going to quickly go over the ECL Invitational. We're just going to talk about what won and what top aided, and then from there, we're going to talk about all of the cards we didn't discuss that were either not spoiled or spoiled after we recorded last week. I think there was only one card unspoiled when that was Kalos's spoiler. And then we're going to discuss Yottabyte's card, or at least what we think is going to be Yottabyte's card, because I don't know whether or not it was confirmed, if it went through some changes. And then we're going to have a little soapbox at the very end for Shark to tell us about PAX East, both in general, but also like Eternal related. I swear it'll be Eternal related. And then we'll cap off the end of the cast with our average brew of the week and streamer of the week.
Yes. Perfect. Okay, so I guess first let's start off with the ECL Invitational. So it looks like that was won by Norakami. No.
Yeah, I think it's Nora. I think it's Norakami. I'm not sure, but like that's how I would pronounce it, which is probably wrong.
Gotcha. Yeah, they were playing a Huru Savagery deck. The list was originally made by Knife Bloom. We talked about it like 2 weeks ago when it first came out. I think it was our brew of the week that week.
Yeah, the deck is still like that. So that is 3 events in a row where this deck has shown up in an event and done fairly well. So like, because last week was the ETS Invitational, although you can make some arguments that, this week and last week was a small field, so it could be inbred. But I mean, it won this week, which is a pretty big thing. And I actually think a lot of it has to do with what it faced in the finals. It actually has a knockout card in its deck for a strategy, which we're going to discuss here in a second. But I think that the deck definitely has legs, and I'm very interested to see where this deck goes, if it goes anywhere with the new cards, because looking through the deck list, it looks like they only added one new card, and that was a Market Palace, which we'll talk about later.
Yep. Yeah, so also in the top 8, there were 2 Haunted Highway lists, 3 Reanimator lists, and 2 variations of FTP or Genev.
Yeah, I'll give you one guess who was piloting one of those Haunted Highways. It was Dr. Pringles, as always.
Professor Lays.
Oh yeah.
I was trying to make it. I was trying to make a joke.
Sorry, I had to kill your joke because it was taking a little too long.
That's all right.
But yeah, so
that's awesome.
I think the most interesting takeaway here is 3 Reanimator decks. Reanimator has been fairly absent from results since the initial run by was it Isomorphic? I don't want to get Isomorphic and Isochron mixed up.
Yeah, no, it was Isomorphic.
But this is the first time that we've really seen a whole lot. And I personally am not too terribly surprised, because I know that we have been far enough away from Reanimator that people are starting to skimp on the ways to interact with the deck, because people aren't as scared that it's going to show up, especially in these types of events. Because I mean, looking back through the various ETSs and everything that has occurred since the deck's inception, a lot of people have been packing market hate for the deck that like really, really hurts the deck. And so I'm assuming that people are just like, oh, well, nobody's going to bring Reanimator because they can get shut down so easily by a market gavel and a little bit of pressure. So I'm not too surprised, but also like I said before, I do think that the additional 2 cards that were added that fit right into the deck, give it some more legs and consistency. Now, I will say, I looked through these 3 Reanimator lists, and all 3 of them have chosen different removal packages, which I thought was interesting. So one of them was running an Annihilate removal package, so 3 Annihilate in the main and 1 in the market. One of them was running the traditional Suffocate package, And then one of them was running 3 Desecrate with 1 in the market. So that was really interesting to see, because I think that a lot of reanimated players are, and I don't know necessarily if all of them agree with me. I know that The Rock and I had a discussion about this the other night, but I think that Desecrate is really important to this deck existing if Vankblade, which is that card that I was mentioning earlier that really knocks it out, that was featured in the Horu Savagery deck. Vankblade being in the format means that the deck has to have ways to kill those creatures. Because as long as the creature has 2 or more power before you put that Vankblade on it, it gets out of Suffocate range. Suffocate's a really good removal spell, but it doesn't hit half of what exists in the meta that really knocks out the deck. Because you got your Gavels, which, I mean, there's really no easy way other than your Burglarize to deal with Gavel, but you also have the issue of Vankblade, which Suffocate's just not good enough against.
Yeah, I feel like it's got to be some combination of Suffocate, Annihilate, and Desecrate. I feel like Suffocate is probably the least of the 3 that you want to be running. Because if it's like a unit that fits it with 3 or less power, you're pretty much fine blocking it with your Master Cartographers, your Spore Folk, your merchants and stuff. Whereas if it's going to be something bigger, you need to actually kill it with Annihilate or with Desecrate.
Yeah, so I actually will disagree there, because one of the deck's worst matchups is aggro, and the best ways to win the aggro matchup is with Suffocate. So like the deck does use its health as a resource, which against the aggro decks, like unfortunately, I mean, like turn 5 is a lot of time to be giving your aggro opponent. So it's very important in the aggro matchups. I actually like the idea of the deck moving towards having 6 main board removal spells. So some mixture of what I would suggest personally, at least trying off the bat, would be like 4 Suffocate and 2 Desecrate, and then having the market Desecrate as well. Desecrate just seems too good, because I don't think that you can lean heavily enough on Annihilate, because there are a lot of multicolor units that can be problems for you. Especially, I mean, like probably one of the worst things for the deck is your any Rakano style deck, like having those 2 factions in their deck, playing the Rakano merchant into a Vankblade. Like that's just, I mean, that's fucking really hard to deal with. And I don't like the idea of the deck relying on its market to deal with everything that hurts the deck from going off.
Yeah, that's true. I totally get it.
that
I
was
love that deck. Maybe that'll be our deck of the week next week or something. Who knows?
Yeah, we can try and see what we want to do with fiddling with the deck. I don't know, because of the results of this week. I think the only reason why the results from this tournament may not, of course, we're probably not doing any favors by talking about this tournament, but like, I think the biggest reason that the results from this tournament may not affect as much as like ETS is because there's a little bit less publicity. It's less in the public eye because the results are on the ECL's website. But as far as I know, unless it's been posted recently, it's not on Eternal Warcry. I mean, it's Tuesday night. The event ended on Sunday night. So we're like 2 days from the event's conclusion. And as far as I know, it's not on Eternal Warcry yet. And so like, that's where a lot of eyes get on these deck lists. So maybe, I mean, unless you were paying attention this weekend or asking about it, maybe you didn't realize that 3 Reanimator lists made top 8, and people will continue to skimp on their ways to deal with the deck. And I hope so, because this is my current favorite deck. I just fucking love this deck so much. It's so fun to play.
Yeah, and actually, like looking at Eternal Warcry right now, the most recent tournament was from March 24th, and there's that the ECL happened more recently than that, but it's not up there.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that the ECL events get a little bit more popular, especially they did make some announcement changes today about it returning to a more normal type schedule. So I may try to enter some of the Sunday events here and there just for fun. I do like that they're trying a cash event on one of the Sundays this season. So I may try to play in that one as well because, I mean, it feels like Friday Night Magic to me. And that's like all I can ask for, really.
Yeah, I think a cash event would be kind of cool. Just like put in $5 in PayPal or something,
It's
or
literally
like
what it is.
Venmo, or yeah, and
Mhm.
then winning half, maybe half of the top eight that wins gets to split up the prizes. I don't know, however it works.
Yeah, so last thing I want to say on this is definitely a shout out to The Rock and everybody at ACL that like works so hard on this. I feel like they don't get enough credit for what they do because the ETS is just so much more like in the public eye. ECL works very hard to make these events accessible to everybody. I wish that more of your average players would enter in these events because I think it's good fun and good experience. And like, I wish that I had more time to enter these events. They just happen to fall right outside my schedule.
Yeah, same here. And The Rock is just a crazy person. He has one monitor. He's like working out of hotel rooms, and he's running and TOing and sometimes producing and sometimes also, casting these tournaments. He's an insane person, and he's
Shit.
he's irreplaceable.
I may have to donate him a monitor if he's ever up this way.
Yeah, man.
Okay, so let's move on from the ECL Invitational. We spent quite a while on that. Let's go to the unspoiled, what I call the unspoilt cards of Homecoming. So these are all the cards that we didn't know that they were in the set until they came out. I'm just gonna go. We're gonna go through by faction. So the normal faction pairing. So we're gonna start with Fire, and the first card from the Fire would be the Gun Runner. So Gunrunner is a 2 fire, 5 costing 4/2 unit with quick draw pledge. You and your units have quick draw. Summon. If you pledged this game, play a 3/1 relic weapon. So, following with the pledge theme of this campaign, it's a pledge card that does things when you've pledged in a turn, or I'm sorry, in a game.
I think this thing is. It looks like it's pretty bad, but it is phenomenal. It gives all of your units quick draw, which is huge. It means that none of them will die to Howling Peaks. Second, it creates a weapon if you pledge this game that kills anything with 3 toughness and doesn't die itself.
Yeah, I mean it's got quick draw. I think that a lot of us underestimated these pledge abilities before the campaign actually came out. Now, I haven't really been seeing any like fire-based pledge decks pop up, but we'll get to this later. But there are other pledge decks that have been popping up, and I would love to see some brewing around like with the other factions that haven't really been touched yet. And I think fire is one of those.
Yeah, there's a little bit of fire in the Ixton one, but not a ton. I think it's great. I think it's going to see lots of play.
Yeah, my only complaint is the cost. Like 5 is a little prohibitive. Obviously, like in all of these pledge decks, you have to mulligan into a pledge card. Like otherwise they just don't work. So that's my biggest concern with pledge decks. I think that we're still in the trial and error phase. I know that a lot of the teams are very likely working on trying to figure out what the optimal number of pledge units are. And the biggest issue I think we run into with pledge is that there are quite a few suboptimal pledge units that you have to weed through and figure out what is good enough. Like, is the pledge benefits worth adding possible playset of suboptimal units into your deck?
Yeah, and it's not even that they're suboptimal in general. It's that they may just be suboptimal to your strategy. Like, there's a couple of them that are a little bit more aggressive. There are a couple of them that are a little bit more, control-y, and there's not enough to cover one strategy if you're only running like 2 colors. For the most.
Yeah. So, in the essence of last week, what would you give this a rating out of 10?
I would go 7 or 8. I think it's really surprisingly good. It is super value, and the turn that you drop it, you can just swing in with everything and go to town. I think I think it's that good.
Yeah, I'll give it like I'll give it a 7. Like, I think that it is a interesting card, and that now that I've seen some of the pledge cards in action, like, I think any of them that have like a reasonable effect could potentially be very, very, very strong. So I'll move on to the next card. The next card that was not spoiled was Call for Aid. This is a 2-time faction, 4 costing fast spell that says play a Power Stone, draw a card, gain a life. This card seems like it most certainly fits in a couple different strategies.
Yeah. I feel like it is just based on the costs alone and the what you get for that cost. It feels like a slightly worse version of one of those 4-cost draw spells that used to be played in temporal. But given the fact that it's already a fast spell, I think it might actually be slightly better. Drawing 1 card, gaining 1 life. 1 life kind of feels weird on this, but the Power Stone especially really helps.
So the 1 life to me feels like it's there because this is a card that can fit into multiple strategies. So when I see the life, I think Mask. If Mask ever comes back, I think life force decks, should those ever be around, like anything that benefits from like you gaining a life in a turn. Obviously, since you're gaining life from the card, I think that that is like probably the least powerful effect on the card, but it's I mean, it's a role player, so if you are playing a Mask deck, this seems like an auto include into the deck.
Yeah, I love that it's a fast spell though, because you can hold this up. You can hold up the Xenon Merchant or the Smuggler. You can hold up whatever card you need to, like a removal spell. And if they don't play anything, well, then I guess I get to ramp and draw a card, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it just does a lot of different things. So I think that it is this is one of those cards where it's easy to underestimate the effect, but I mean, like, it's always bare minimum a ramp slash cantrip.
Yep, I like it a lot. I would probably give it a 6, maybe 7.
Yeah, I think 6 or 7 is a reasonable like assessment. I'll give it a 6. I think that it's good. It's not super powerful, but it fits where it needs to go.
Yeah, it has a home, I think.
Yeah, control strategies. It's I mean, it's a cantrip that ramps you. I mean, and then the life is the afterthought. Like, it, some strategies it could benefit from that. So I'll move to the next card. The next card is Necessary Measures. This is a 4-cost 2 Justice Influence spell that says either you choose between 2 things. You kill an enemy unit if it's their only unit, or you draw a unit from your deck if it is the only one with that name.
Yeah, it's really strange. It's like a couple of wacky ideas. This is something that couldn't at all happen in the physical space. The first ability could, but drawing a unit from your deck only if it's the only one with that name. You'd have to have your opponent look through your deck, make sure that it's the only one with that name. Like, it's cool that they're using this design space. I think it's a okay card. The thing to take into account here is that Rise to the Challenge, which is the one that costs 4, a red and a green, search your library for any unit and put it into your hand with +2/+0. That card was used a lot in combo decks as well as in control decks, but you had to splash red or splash green if you were not one of those 2 colors. This one is mono justice unless you go and get a unit, but you have to be only playing one of it. So it's kind of an interesting give and take.
Yeah, I don't like this card. I think that they could have pushed it a little bit more. I mean, it's already a 4 costing card. I think that this card would have probably had said kill an enemy unit or draw a unit from your deck, and it probably still wouldn't be playable at 4. I mean, like maybe that's incorrect. Like that. I mean, for that kind of effect for 4, like have seen play, but I think like the way that this is worded, it was Direwolf being safe. They didn't want to make which this is a shitty, weird way to say this, but like I don't think that they wanted to make a single faction modular spell that was like too powerful, because like we already have the displays, which let's be honest, those are some of the most powerful modular spells in existence in between at least the 2 card games that I play. I know that like some of the charms in Magic are pretty good, but and then the single modular spells in Magic are like really good, but they also tend to cost a lot more. But
yeah,
still,
like,
it's just, I don't know. It just doesn't read very well to me.
yeah, it's okay. I got it played against me in the event within like the last 4 hours of the event being up from this weekend. It killed one of my units. That was it. I mean,
that surprises me because I feel like in limited, this is fine because you're going to have a lot of one-ofs in your deck.
But you can't get it in limited, so.
Yeah, exactly. So this is just one of those cards where I was like I know that we talked about it, I think last week. I kind of wish that this card like existed in the draft space. Like this would be a fine draft card, but it's not. So that point is pretty moot. As far as my rating for this card, I give it a 2 out of 10. I just don't see it like really making any splashes at all.
I would probably say 3 or 4. It's still a kill spell. It still has some fringe usability for like a combo deck or something, but I wouldn't go so far as to say it's a 2. It still does stuff.
Okay. I respect your opinion. So the next card we have up that wasn't spoiled is called Stormholt Knife, and it is a doozy. So it is a 2 justice faction, or I'm sorry, 2 justice influence, 6 cost, 5/5 relic weapon that says Stormholt Knife is free while you have 10 life or less. So basically, you're never actually casting this for anything other than free.
Yeah, this card is bonkers. I think this card is super duper good. A free 5/5/5 relic weapon for temporal is nuts. I had somebody play this against me the other day when I was playing against them. They were on temporal. I was on some aggro deck, and they got to play a free gain 5 life, kill a creature, and if you can't attack back, then kill another creature. Like, you can wipe the board and then play this for free and swing in for 5, like in the same turn. It's silly.
Yeah, I think this is an extremely dangerous card, and you don't even have to be in Justice to play this. No, like, doesn't it remove the faction cost as well?
No, it just makes it cost 0. You still have to have double justice.
Oh, I could have sworn I saw when I was watching somebody play it removed the faction. Okay, well that makes sense, but still, I mean, a 0 cost relic weapon. I agree with you. I think that this is very dangerous to be putting into a deck like Temporal, because this is literally like saying, here, Temporal, this is your way to beat aggro.
Yeah, this is the beginning of turning the corner. You play your harsh rule, you play this, you swing in for 5, or you kill their bear that didn't die from the harsh rule.
Yeah, or like you're playing against Skycrag aggro, and like the only way that Skycrag aggro beats something like this is like having literally nothing but Aegis units. Like, and like that's just, this card super frustrates me that it exists.
I think it's an 8 or 9. I think it's super.
I think that this card is very dangerously close to a 10. Like, I think that its effect is extremely scary. Like,
I think it's very scary. I don't want to see you playing Temporal. Anyone who's listening, you stop that. You put that away.
So this is gonna sound really fucking strange because like I have refused to play a temporal for a really long time, but this card makes me want to play temporal. I think that this card could potentially put temporal back over the top. Like what how did decks fucking stop temporal if they draw one of their six or whatever board wipes plus this? Like I don't know. Like by the time that they have to emergency play this card, they probably have the ability to draw a billion cards and then just go over the top. And I don't get me wrong. I appreciate Direwolf for pushing the envelope on something like this. Powerful effects like this in Magic, I appreciate. I just like this is scary. This is one of those cards where a much better deck builder and player than I is going to find a way to break the meta, and then all we're gonna see is it, and then it's gonna get a nerf.
I think it's super cool. I'm excited to try it out in something that isn't temporal, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. So, what is your final verdict? I know that you said eight or
my
nine.
final verdict was 8 or 9.
Okay. All right. We'll stick with that. We'll move on to the next item on the list. We have Bear Guard Bayonet, which is a single primal, 1-cost, 1/1 weapon that gives the unit that it is attached to Overwhelm, and it says summon if you pledged this game, play a copy of that sigil. So again, going with the pledge theme of this campaign, we have another card that benefits from when you pledge at the beginning of the game, and it gives you a free ramp. It essentially turns this weapon into a free weapon.
Yeah, this thing, if you pledge, is free, and it gives your unit Overwhelm and +1/+1. And if you have some way to abuse the empower, you get to empower twice, because you can play a power that turn, then empower with this, and then swing with a big, huge thing that has Overwhelm. This is one of the cards that's in the deck of the week, so we'll talk about it more there. But I really like it. I think it's kind of a sleeper. I don't know. I'd probably say this is probably like a 7 for me.
Yeah, I think that this is extremely important to the decks that it fits in, but you have to build the decks around it. So I'll give it like a 6.57. It's very powerful when used with certain creatures, which we'll get to later.
Yeah, it's a sneaky 7.
Yeah, it's a very sneaky 7, yes, for sure. So the next card on the list is Svetya Merciful Oreen. This is 3 justice influence requirement, 8 cost, 6/6 unit that has Aegis, and it says summon each justice unit in your deck gets +6/+6 and Aegis.
This thing is fucking stupid when you play it. You don't even have to hit with it. You summon, and all of the units in your deck are now Aegis, and they are now +6/+6. Absolutely bonkers. And it costs the same as Icaria.
Yeah, this card's very powerful. It does suffer from the issue of Justice just has a billion fucking good cards, especially like, well, anywhere along the curve, but towards the top of the curve, you're fighting with a lot of cards. It's definitely a role maker. It plays a role in your deck. I think that it's one of those things where you either are playing chains or you're playing this in a just heavily justice based deck.
Yeah, this thing is super good. Like, Icaria was good because it cost 7. It was a 5/5. It made your next dude really big. And it has, charge and Aegis. This thing is super good because you don't even have to attack with it. It comes into play and all of your things get Warcried for 6. And all of your things get Aegis. It just... What?
Yeah, somebody beat me up with a like Rakano ramp deck that ramped into this, and that was that sucked. But this card definitely is pretty good. But Again, it's an 8-drop, so you got to work for it. But when it does come down, unless you die in the next like turn or whatever, or you just like whiff on a bunch of draws, like it has a very, very astronomical effect to the game plan for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I agree. It's
So
super good if you can play it. If not, it can kind of get stuck in your hand.
yeah, exactly. So there's only so much you can do with it. So I will give this card a in a vacuum, I'm gonna say 7, but I think that I would rate it even lower because I do think that Justice can do better things already.
I don't know. I would probably go. I would probably go 8. It has Aegis itself, so it's not dying. It's a giant wall. You make all of your other dudes huge. If you have anything with like revenge on top of your deck, it now has Aegis and +6/+6, and you get to play it for free next turn or whenever you draw it. I don't know. I would say it is an 8. It matches its power cost.
Okay, I get that. I feel you. All right, moving on to the next card that was not spoilt. We are going to talk about Honor of Claws. This is a single primal cost 4-drop spell that says draw 3 cards, then discard a card. This is probably my personal favorite Unspoiled card. I think that this card is a very good card in multiple different archetypes, but most importantly, I think that this is part of the puzzle to helping Reanimator become a little bit more consistent.
Yeah, this card I think is really surprisingly good because of the influence cost. It's a single primal. You no longer have to play Wisdom of Elders on turn 3 with double primal and trying to make all of your other influence requirements. You can play this instead the next turn for a single primal. I think it allows you to splash a little bit easier into Justice.
Yeah, and I think most of the decks that would be playing this anyways are okay with discarding extra power or some random card that may not be good in the matchup, depending on what kind of control deck or what. Because like I do think that that's really, this belongs in control, and some like go long, like go over the top type combo like Reanimator is. I definitely wish that Direwolf would push the envelope a little bit more on like draw and discard effects. Mostly because I think that a card very similar to like Careful Study and Magic would be like really nice to have in the game. I don't think that like a 2 costing draw 2 discard 2 would be like way too powerful for the game, because the decks that would see play in are very like pretty much just like Reanimator and maybe like something like Wisps that uses your Void as a engine. I just like, I wish that those types of effects would be more common, but like this is definitely like starting to go over, like this is better in Reanimator in my personal opinion than playing like the extra I forget what the creature's name is, but it has the Nightfall and it allows you to draw a card and discard a card.
Nocturnal Emissions. Observer.
It was okay. Yeah, I was like, that didn't sound right. What? Like,
Of course it didn't.
Yeah, Nocturnal Observer, like I think is good for the deck, but I think that this card is a little bit more like, and I really like this card, and I, every time I've cast this card, like I've just like man, it's so much gas. You draw 3 cards and then you discard one of the many cards that you want to discard anyways. Like, and then I've seen Temporalists. Like I was watching, I think you played against a guy on Temporal last night that was playing Honor the Claws, and I know that yesterday I watched a little bit of Grimfan, and he also played a guy that was playing. Like this is a very good control card too, especially in a deck like Temporal. So
I think that there is a Icaria Blue version 3.0 out there somewhere that's going to run this card. It's going to run the bear. It's going to be super good. I don't know. I think Icaria Blue could make a comeback.
Yeah, you may have a point there. I mean, this card combos extremely well with Privilege. So I mean, like any control deck that's playing Privilege is definitely playing this card in it as well. So I'll let you rate this first, and then I'll give you my rating.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I think 4 cost is a little high for a draw spell that you want to be playing. I mean, Temporal's already got a couple of different options at 4, but though they're the time versions, I would probably put this at like a 6.
I'm giving this a 9. I think this card is fucking great. Like, I think the only thing holding the card back is its cost. But that being said, you are drawing 3 cards, and the game is pretty notorious for having a lot of void effects, especially like Privilege of Rank, like just existing in general. Like this, I wish they would push the envelope a little bit more, but I think that this is exactly what a deck like Reanimator wanted. But also, it scares me that more cards that easily fit into a deck like Temporal are coming out.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, that's cool. That's
yeah.
Cool.
It's just, I think that it does a lot, and I'm excited to see exactly how much it ends up doing. So we'll move on to the next card. The next card on the list is the Winter Crown. This is a 2 primal faction. I'm sorry, influence. I keep saying faction. 4 cost relic that says at the end of your turn, draw a card if any of your units hit the enemy player. Once per turn, you may pay 3 to stun a ready enemy unit. So this is kind of like, what is it? Winter Orb, but it's only on readied units, but also you have the added effect of if you're playing something like a aggro or a tempo oriented deck, as long as you're getting damage through to the enemy opponent, you're getting card advantage. This is another type of effect that I'm very glad that they're starting to introduce into Eternal, because these types of effects exist in Magic, and I've always liked these types of effects.
This thing is strange to me. It's a Winter Orb, except you can't hit the same unit twice in a row. And it's kind of a dirtily card in that you want to hit them with units, but you also want to cast this Winter Crown on turn 4, and you still have to hit them with a unit in order to do it. I don't know. It's interesting. I feel like it is going to be a very good market card for specific decks. And I feel like those kind of decks are going to be something with Ava in it, where you can get a bunch of little flying dudes around your opponent's blockers to draw extra cards.
Yeah, okay, I get that. Like, I like this. Yeah, maybe like a Horu's Horu Flyers list or something like that. Something that like very easily can get damage through. Like, I think that a card like I said, I really like that this effect now exists in the game. I hope that they start to push the envelope a little bit more with these types of effects. But this type of card, I think that the power level is just right. Like, I think that I can guarantee that there's people out there trying to find a way to make this a more playable card than it appears to be, because like I will say that there's a lot of ifs there. Like, obviously you do have to swing through, you have to do damage if you want to get that card draw. Sometimes if you really feel like you got to get that card draw, like you may be swinging in an unfavorable board. Of course, at that point, like I think any good player will be like, well, I'd rather keep my board, like can assess whether or not they want to keep their board or get the card. And obviously the card is drawn at the end of turn. So like if you draw like like you're not actually like really benefiting from that unless it's a fast spell or a unit that you wouldn't have played that turn anyways.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's probably going to be like a 4, maybe 5. Pretty decent for a market. I don't think it's going to see much mainboard play.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'll probably give this about I'll give it a 4. I think that that's a pretty good assessment. I would love to see this card see play. We'll see if, again, some better brewer will come up with a way. I'm sure Knife Bloom will come up with a way to make it playable.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's move on to Shadow now. So in the Shadow, we have probably the other best card in this campaign. It is Desecrate, which is 2 Shadow Influence, 2-drop spell that says kill a unit, you take 3 damage. Just a unconditional kill a fucking unit for 2. Requires 2 Shadow, but but it's an unconditional removal, like cheap removal spell that all you have to do is pay some life, which, I mean, most players understand that your life is a resource.
Yes. So I think that this card is super, super good for aggressive decks, or super, super good for a decks with lots of extra life. Something like FJS with all of their lifesteal units would benefit from this greatly. I
Yeah.
don't know. I think this is a phenomenal card. I'd put this up there at like a 8, maybe 9.
Yeah, I mean, like this card. I mean, what more can you really say about it? It's a removal spell. It's cheap. Its most prohibitive thing on the card is its influence cost. It costs two. It's 2 shadow, which so it's a little less splashable. But I mean, if your deck is playing heavy shadow and it's trying to go for 2, like unless you're really scared in an early game situation, like you don't necessarily have to be able to cast this on turn 2. This just allows you in later turns of the game to do more things in a single turn.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. And the 3 damage, you want to make sure that your deck doesn't mind about the 3 damage. You want to be either the aggressor or be such a pillow fort that you don't care about taking 3 damage. This isn't for something like a temporal deck where you're going to be on the edge of a knife before you turn the corner and try.
Yeah, so I want to take this a real quick moment to so going back to the whole reanimator thing that I was talking about earlier, and I was having this discussion with Rock. So I think that this is a really good candidate to at least play some amount in reanimator because it's an unconditional kill spell, which is very important for that deck to have. If Fankblade is very popular, but the problem is that the deck, much like temporal, uses its life as a resource because the earliest that you're going to go off in that deck with a nut draw is turn 5. And there's a lot of things that can happen in the first 5 turns of a game because it's not like your opponent isn't going to know what you're doing. Like if your game plan is going very well and you're going off on turn 5, your opponent knows what you're doing by like turn 2. Like, so this walks a really thin line of it's very good because it's unconditional, but also the fact that you're taking the damage, it can be very detrimental to the deck. So I think that in some number this would be fine to play in reanimator, but I feel like you're really costing yourself a lot of points if this is a 4 of in your deck because of aggro existing.
Yes, I agree. I think it's good. I think it's going to be better in aggro decks or big fluffy mid range decks with lots of removal than it will be in reanimator. But I think it has a home in reanimator.
Okay, yeah. So that being said, I'm gonna give this card. I'm gonna give it a 9 because I think that these types of effects, like the fact that it's undercosted and it costs life, I think you're gaining a lot more from it being undercosted than you're losing from it taking like life points from you when you cast it. It's like the Thoughtseize argument in Magic, but we won't get into that. So let's move on to the next card, which was the only spoilt card that we haven't covered since after our recording last week, and that is Profane Censor. This was spoilt by it was spoiled by Kalos. Sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly. And it is a 2 shadow influence 5-drop cursed relic that says at the end of the cursed player's turn, they discard 2 cards from the top of their deck for each curse on them and their units. So it's mill.
Yep. I actually got destroyed by a JPS control deck that ran I think it's a 2-drop 0/4, the Sporefolk guy that mills cards whenever they have in power, and then it ran this, and then it also ran like permafrosts and then it just it kills all of your units, then solitude, and you lose.
Huh. I'll have to look. I would that sounds kind of interesting. Like I always like mill is just such a meme way to win games. Like I'm glad that they continue to print cards that make mill a viable, like anything that makes more decks viable in the format and attacks from different angles. Like I think that the longer time goes on and the more time that we have these like cursed relics and these and relics in general coming up, like I think that the whole boar argument slash conversation becomes a little bit more complicated because like if we think about a world where boar is not playable or exists, like what kind of meta would exist, because there are quite a few powerful relics and weapons out there. So like I don't really want to get into that, but I do like this card and I'm glad that they continue to support mill.
Yep.
So out of 10, I'm gonna give it like a 3 because mill is still a meme. But that being said, it could be a very important role player in a mill deck. So any more of those cards, like, and if it makes mill a playable deck and people enjoy doing that, because I know people do, you always have that one person in Magic that wants to play a mill deck. Like, I'm glad that those people have a way to play that deck.
Yeah, man, and that kind of deck will prey upon an aggro deck. You know, they can play the deck that I ran into played Hailstorms, played Harsh Rules, played End of the Story. You know, played actual single target removal spells, and this, and you know, they can just do whatever the hell they want to once they've removed all the threats.
Yep.
And so I think it might have a home. I'm going to go with probably a 4 or a 5 here with this one.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to multifaction. And first up, and I don't actually think there's a whole lot of these. Looking through, yeah, there's just two multi-faction cards that weren't spoilt. So the first of the two we'll cover is Cameron the Fox. This is the final pledge cycle, like tri-faction pledge cycle card. And it says, so it's wind chest. So fire, justice, shadow, 4-drop, 3/3 with pledge that says once per turn, you may sacrifice another unit that hit the enemy player to draw a card and give Cameron +2/+2. Really interesting effect. Definitely see it fitting in like maybe a Greenadens type strategy. I did see, I forget if it was on your stream or if it was on Grimfan yesterday, but somebody was playing a Fox deck that was filled with madness type effects. But the problem with doing something like that is if your opponent just chumps blocks their own creature and you are banking on like getting through with that damage, then you can't sacrifice the creature because it has to hit the player.
That's true. This feels like a lot of hoops to jump through to get the ability, which then makes this unit a much bigger target for them to remove, in addition to it already being a kind of a big target to remove. You know, like, because you're making your board smaller, putting your eggs into one basket with Cameron, and if they remove this, like, okay, well, I just sacrificed 2 units to draw a card, and they discarded a card. Really, like it. I'm not sold that this is going to be a super good card. I'm going to say it's like a 3.
Yeah, I'll give it a 4. I think that it is actually a pretty okay card. It's again another role player card. I'm not real sure if this kind of card is gonna do a whole lot. So I can understand, like, there are some situations where you could like madness their creatures, swing, they chump block or something like that, and you're just like, oh, I had to combust anyways, ha ha ha, like, and then you get extra like value or whatever. Or you can madness, like, let's say you have 7 power, you madness, you swing, they let it through or whatever, and then you play Cameron, sacrifice it. But yeah, I like 4 is probably the best I'd give it. I think that it's an interesting card, but I just don't really see it making any real strides at all.
Yep, I agree. I think it's below 5 for sure.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the last unspoilt card.
God damn.
Are you getting tired of it yet? So the last card, which is actually when I said that some of the other cards were the best cards in the campaign, I kind of forgot that this one existed. This is Korovyat Palace. Korovyat. So I'm sorry, Russian. Korovyat Palace, which is a Justice, Primal 6-cost site. It is the only site that came in the campaign, and it says it has 4 health or whatever they call it. And it says your units with 4 attack or more have endurance. Pretty powerful static ability. And then it's Svetya's agenda. So the promo Svetya, the 4/4, not the new one that just came with the set. And then the 3 spells associated with the site are Wisdom of the Elders, so draw 2 cards, Sack the City, which gives all of your units Berserk, and a new card that doesn't exist anywhere but the site, so we can only assume that it's coming with set 6, is called Withstand, and it is a 5-cost spell. I'm not sure if it's a fast spell or not, but it's a 5-cost spell that gives a unit +4/+4 in Aegis, which is like pretty fucking solid ability. Like, I mean,
so this thing is busted. You play it down. If your opponent permafrosted one of your dudes, if it had 4 or more toughness, it gets endurance and it pops that permafrost and you can swing in with it. If not, you just play Withstand on your dude that had permafrost and it gets +4/+4 permanently and gains Aegis and now has endurance. So now you can swing in with this huge dude and then sit back and block with it too. So it can't really kill another unit in that, like, it can't protect itself. But if you have a unit, it makes it so that all of your units can protect it as well as attack. I think this thing is super good. Getting a free Wisdom of the Elders when you don't have anything else to do is great. Sack the City is okay. I love berserking things, but I'm not sure that really belongs on this card.
I think it's one of those situations where you can just win the game, and then that's why it's there. I love this card, obviously, as a Horu and Berserk type aficionado. I cannot wait for the perfect shell to be developed for this card because, like, I don't trust my own ability. I think that this fits really, really well in a tempo-oriented style deck. So if anybody comes up with a really solid, like, Renown or Tempo Renown style deck that this fits really well into, I've seen some builds yet, but I don't think they're entirely fleshed out. I definitely want to play them because I don't trust my own ability to figure out, like, a good tempo shell. I'm not good enough for that shit. Like, but this card is pretty crazy, and I definitely know that a lot of the better players have been describing it as Peaks 2.0.
Yeah, I think it's good. I don't think it's. I'm not sure that it's better than Peaks, because Peaks can actually kill an opposing unit. It can actually hit your opponent in the face, and it copies your dude. This one relies a little bit too heavily on you having units for it to do anything. Sack the City and Withstand both need a unit to be targeted of yours to target it. The Wisdom of the Elders is a really cool one, which lets you go and get a unit.
Yeah. All right. So rate it, sir.
I'd probably say 7 or 8. Probably 8.
Yeah, I'll give it an 8. I think that it is an extremely powerful site that does very, very powerful things that may require a little bit more thought on how to perfectly fit it into a deck than a card like Peaks, because Peaks just, like, easily fits into a lot of different things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so that is the end of the Unspoiled cards. I'm sorry. That's the end of it until the next Spoilt season. So what are your final thoughts on the campaign, sir? Just kind of like, what did you think of it?
I loved it. I think there's a lot of cool stuff to play with. I think that the meta definitely needed some refreshments, like a couple of cookies and some milk. And this was more than I could have asked for. I'm pretty sure that like probably like 80% of the cards here are in some form playable.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like this more so than any other campaign has like produced a pretty good amount of playable cards. They may not be Varas, but like the fact that like a lot of these cards are actually playable in some way or another is like more than I could have asked for. Like I was expecting maybe 3 playables, but there's a solid like 10 or so playables in this set.
And I think that Direwolf Digital has kind of hit a chord here in that they know that campaigns are important because they have some of them have a few good cards in them, and people if they want to play with those cards, they will buy it or they will grind forever until they can purchase it with gold. This one has so many good cards in it, but they're not like I need to have this campaign in order to play Eternal. So like people who don't have it or don't have the money, they won't feel like super bummed that they can't get it, but the cards are super good and very fun to play with. They're fun to brew with, and I expect them to make a decent amount of money having made these cards.
Yeah, you pretty much hit the nail on the head there. I as an aside, this is the first and only campaign that I have bought with gold because I had a very large amount of gold that I hadn't spent because I just don't draft.
That seems like a mistake.
It probably is, but I'm okay with it because like I still have a ton of gold. So
no. I mean the fact that you don't draft.
Dude, I don't know, man. Like something like in Eternal, especially like even in Magic, I just don't like drafting. It's just not really my forte. I'm bad at it. That's why I don't like doing it. I don't like being really, really bad at stuff.
You know what you should do is you should do a draft on stream. For those of you listening who don't know this, in the Eternal Discord, there are 2 draft channels. You can go in there, start a draft, and post a screenshot of your pick, and people in that channel will say, I think you should pick this card, and I think you should pick this card, and I think you should pick this card, and then you can ask them, okay, why? And they'll explain it. You can do that every single pick, all 48 of them, if you want to. People will follow you, and then you can post screenshots of how you're playing the game, that kind of thing. They'll help you build the deck too if you need help with drafting. It is a phenomenal resource that is completely free. And I like when I first started drafting, I used it a ton. And then I was like following it a little bit, and I helped out other people too, kind of like give what you get. You help out when you need help, you can ask for it, and then you can give help when you're done. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe I'll check that out. I wouldn't mind doing a draft on stream. I know that I have like 3 or 4 draft tickets I need to burn through. So maybe sometime here in the near future. So one last thought on the campaign. I really like the pre-constructed decks. But that being said, I mean, like, I don't really care about the games. Like, if there was an option to skip playing the games, I would probably do that because I just don't really care that much about the lore. But that being said, I do like that they provide the player with a pre-constructed deck. I think for newer players, it's a lot more attractive. And then some of the players that have been playing for a really long time enjoyed it too. So that anything that like people really enjoy, like that, I'm all for it.
Yeah, you get to play with cards that you normally wouldn't be playing with, like kind of like you were drafted it or had it sealed. But it was specifically designed to be playing in that campaign. I don't know. I think it was cool. I like the campaign as a whole. Let's move on.
Yeah. Okay. So real quickly, we actually have one more card to discuss, and this is the Yada. It's not a spoiled card. And I want to preface this with, we don't know for certain if this is the final cut for the card. Like, we don't know how much this card is going to change between what I have seen and when it actually makes it into the game. But Yada decided to talk to the community and get help designing his card that he used to influence. And I thought that was really cool that he went to the community and had everybody vote on it. I didn't vote on it, but I definitely would have voted for the card that we're about to talk about. As many of you guys know, Shark and I both really love Blitz variants. I'm more of the JPS type. I think that Shark is real fond of the fire types. But let's just get into this card.
So, real quick, before we even talk about the card, for those of you who don't know how this works, in the influence store, you can spend influence on pretty much anything. There's some emotes that you can use. This is all from watching Twitch. You can spend your influence that you've earned from watching Twitch on emotes. You can spend it on packs. You can spend it on, like a playmat. What's it called? The avatar. Or you can spend it, if you're a streamer, you can spend it on campaigns. Now, most of the people who stream have spent them on campaigns and, gotten more people to view and that kind of thing. Yottabyte, who streams anyway, he'll stream the whatever and not spend anything. I don't think he spent anything on campaigns. He has been saving it up so that he can use 1.75 million influence points. Please keep in mind that the cheapest campaign is 10,000 influence points. He spent 1.75 million influence points, which is work with Direwolf Digital to design a card. And that's what he did. And he put it out to the community to design the card. I think that is super classy. Yottabyte's the man. And I don't know. I think this is great. And let's talk about I'll let you read the card.
Yeah, shout out to Yottabyte. It must be really hard streaming upside down. So
he lives in Australia.
So this card in its current iteration that I have seen, I cannot preface that enough. It is a Justice 1/1 3 costing unseen that says, it's called Kira the Prodigy. By the way, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. I'm just so excited over this card. It says, if Kira would lose a battle skill at the end of a turn, she keeps it permanently instead. Kira permanently keeps any increase to power and toughness from spells or abilities. This is literally the perfect Blitz card.
The only problem with this card is that it costs 3. And that's because everything in Blitz costs 3.
Yeah,
but I can totally see this taking the place of like the Pistolier or even the Coastal Battle Mage. So
the effects are just so good.
It's so crazy. It's something that hasn't been done before, so I love that design for it. It's in a design space that hasn't been used. Imagine a 1/1, you play Finest Hour, it becomes a 4/4 permanently. Imagine Ghost Form. It gets unblockable and lifesteal permanently. Imagine Rapid Shot. It gets Quick Draw and +4/+0 permanently. This thing is crazy, super duper good. There was a lot of questions about it when I was talking about it on my stream. Somebody was like, well, that means that you can Berserk every turn, doesn't it? But no. This says if it would lose the battle skill at the end of turn, it keeps it instead. And Berserk you lose immediately upon activating it. Not to mention the fact that it's not that you're losing it from, it's not one of those spells that says it gains Berserk until end of turn, because that's not how Berserk works. It like cards that say, this like Shugo Standard, this unit gets +4/+2 and Overwhelm until end of turn. That would be permanent on this creature.
Yeah, this allows the Blitz variants to have a value engine.
Yep.
It and I mean, just think about it. You give it flying permanently and draw a card for 1 with Levitate. There's just a lot of things.
This is Hero of the People on steroids.
Yeah.
This is the legendary version of Hero of the People. I love it. It's awesome. I can't wait to see what it actually comes out to be when it's done. Hopefully it's not terrible. They haven't nerfed it into the ground.
Yeah, something tells me that it's not going to come out looking like this. Maybe they'll clean up the wording. Maybe they'll turn the wording around a little bit. I just hope that they because honestly, I don't know how playable this card would be if it was any worse than it currently is. Because this is very powerful how it is, but you can change literally one word and make it unplayable.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So, not going to rate this card because we don't actually know what it's going to look like when it's done. But all I know is that we're both very excited to see what happens.
I love it.
All right, so let's move on to the last topic, which is Shark's soapbox to tell us all about PAX East. Before Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say, before we get into this, for all those of you who don't know what PAX East is a large annual convention that happens in Boston, Massachusetts. And it is generally around like March and April of every year. And it's a very large video game convention. And so, actually, this is the first year in a few years where it was like really big again. So like the first time I went was 4 or 5 years ago, and like Blizzard had announcements there for Overwatch. Wizards was there making announcements for Dragons of Tarkir. Like it was some pretty big panels and announcements there. But then like for a few years afterwards, not a whole lot was really going on there. But then this past PAX was like the return of some big things. I mean, like Borderlands 3 was announced. Wizards came back because they had the MTGA Invitational there, which I would like to. We'll talk a little bit about that later on. I want Shark to get in what he wants to say, everything before we get to that. But I just wanted to give everyone a little bit of background in case you didn't happen to know what PAX East was. So Shark, why don't you take it away?
Yeah. So PAX East, like he said, it's a video game convention. My best friend who I went with, he describes it perfectly, and it's saying it's a convention center that is filled with 60,000 of the closest friends that you didn't know that you had. You know, everybody there has been, has seen some kind of, diversity in their life in regards to gaming. And it's some place where everybody who's interested in gaming can come together and find, like validation in this hobby that they enjoy. There's just hundreds, thousands of games there. Like there's a board game whole section, there's a card game section, there's video games, there's an indie showcase, where people who are like 1 and 2 person developers, can just, pitch their game to the public and see, get feedback, sign people up for it, get a bunch of eyes on their tiny new game. I don't want to take up too much time on this just because, we're already, probably over our time that we normally are. But so with PAX East, I went there. I love seeing indie stuff. I don't really care for standing in line and seeing the thing that everyone else wants to see at PAX. Like I didn't stand in line to go do a VR Oculus tryout, whatever. If I want an Oculus, I'll go buy one. I want to see the stuff that people aren't really talking about. And I want to play the games that are, kind of new and have weird ideas to them. And so what I did is when I went there, all the games that I enjoyed, I took pictures of, or I got like little like cards that they give away, like, oh, here comes your game. There's our email address, that kind of thing. And I looked up those games, found some information, and I put it all into a spreadsheet, which Jay is going to try not to forget to post in with the Reddit and or the YouTube or whatever, when he posts all the links to it. So you guys can check that out. I've listed all the things that I purchased, all the reasons why, that kind of stuff. And there's links to everything. And then, so when I went to PAX, there was a Direwolf digital booth. My first year there was a Direwolf digital booth, and Eternal. I had just started playing Eternal. I really liked it, and I went there, and it was all, here's how to learn Eternal. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess that makes sense. I've only been playing for a little while. And then the year after that, I didn't go to PAX, but my best friend did, and he brought me back an Eternal t-shirt, and I wore that t-shirt. It's great. It's amazing. I wear it on stream sometimes. This year is the third year after that, and I went, and again, I found that they didn't have t-shirts this year. The entire booth section, it's like a big square section in on the floor, was all taken up by the board games that they play. They're a part of, they do Clank and different variations of that. And there's a Game of Thrones, I think, variant of game that they do. And they have like a teeny tiny, like a lemonade stand looking booth in the corner. And then there's a bunch of tables where you can play the actual games. And then there's a big wall. And on the back half of the wall, on the other side of all the board games and stuff, they had 4 tablets set up, or 5 or 6 or something like that. I don't know, some amount of tablets set up with Eternal tutorials. And there was one guy from the Direwolf sitting back there watching, kind of showing people how to use it. There was one person at each of the tables playing the games with people, and there was one person in the actual lemonade stand. It was super cool. I was a little disappointed in the stuff that they had there. I totally would have bought like a hoodie, a t-shirt, a bag. I would have bought so much Eternal merch if it was there. The only thing that they had for Eternal there was a set of pins which is something that is popular at PAX. I don't really get it that much, but they had like a pin for Helpful Doorbot, Jack, Bandit Queen, and Nyctotraxion. And then they also had little like printouts, like just like sheets of paper printouts of 5 or 6 different arts of the card that were given out for free. Those were cool. That was pretty sweet of them. I just wish that there was more for it there. And so I posted a picture like greetings from PAX on Reddit, and that was great. And then I also said like I wish there was more there for us. But then I went back on Sunday because somebody asked me for a picture of the pins, and so I went back and I took a picture, and I went up and actually talked to the dude in the booth. And it turns out that he was the head of their marketing team. The guy's name is Matt Hudson. Super nice guy. I was talking about it. I was like, man, I wish that there was like shirts and stuff. He's like, yeah, we had them last year, but we kind of ran out, and the next order of them hasn't come in yet, so we don't have them. And so like that made me feel a little bit better that they didn't have them. It's like it's not that they're not doing them; it's just that they ran out. And they also said that I also asked him like, hey, is there any other kind of merch like hoodies or anything that's in the works? He's like, yeah, there's stuff coming, I promise, and I'm really excited to see that kind of stuff. And so I asked him, I'm like, hey, so in Clank, I've heard that there's like a physical card from Eternal in there. And he's like, I think so. I think we're still doing that. Let me go see. And he like pulls out one of the boxes that they opened the night before for a Clank tournament. And he's like, oh yeah, they have that. That's cool. Here you go. You can have it. And like, he just gave me the Bandit Queen. It's a 4-cost. This is the pre-nerf version, so it's a 3/3 instead of a 3/2. But I thought it was super cool of him. He's just like, yeah, here you go. And he even had him sign the back of it there. There it is. You can kind of see it now. But yeah, he had me sign the back of it. I thought that was really cool of him. And I told him like, yeah, I'm TallSharkandHandsome. He's like, oh yeah, I recognize you from the Reddit. Yeah, what's up, man? It was a really cool experience. I'm super glad I went. I'm super glad that I got to talk to Matt and hang out at Direwolf Digital. PAX is awesome. Go check out that spreadsheet if you're looking for indie games and new stuff coming up soon.
Yeah, so one quick thing I wanted to mention was PAX East is where I discovered Eternal last year. Last year, I was at PAX East. I saw Direwolf Digital's booth. I recognized a little bit of the gameplay, but what really drew me in is that they were replaying a stream that Gabby Sparts and LSV did together playing the game. And I was like, well, obviously I fucking know who they are because I play Magic. And so I talked with them for a little bit. They gave out free codes for like chests last year. And I probably, by the end of the weekend, because this was Thursday when I discovered it, and I went all 4 days last year. And so I got a code like at least a handful every day because me and my friends would just show up random times like throughout the day and get more codes. And like I literally all I did waiting in lines at PAX East last year was play fucking Eternal. Like I was instantly hooked, and I probably came out of that weekend with like 20 diamond chests because of the codes that I got. Like, so I got a good early bump. Yeah, it's, I mean, like, obviously anybody listening to this enjoys the game. Like, it just hooked me instantly. Like, I loved it. But PAX East really works. Like, that's it. That's the entire reason that I play this game.
Yeah, I actually wanted to meet LSV at PAX, but he was in the actual MTG Arena tournament, and he didn't do super well, and then I think he left.
So that I'm glad that you mentioned that because I did want to come back to that real quickly. This is real quick. This is not Eternal, but it is slightly related to Eternal because this weekend Magic Arena had their first like big event, and they broke the record by having 100,000 viewers for the Invitational, which was a shit format, but we won't get into that. I am really impressed at how well that game is doing, and I don't want to say I'm worried for Eternal, but like I'm worried for Eternal. Like Magic Arena is getting very popular, like astronomically popular, and I think that it may have the potential to dethrone Hearthstone.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about Arena because I don't really play standard Magic anymore, and I would never plan on doing it again.
I
But I don't know. It was cool to see such a huge event for Magic with like an awesome stage and like these huge crazy lights and like a moving like a camera on like a an arm thing. I don't know. It was super fun. Really cool to see it from behind all that stuff.
Yeah, and like the cards they spoiled there, like it was very overwhelming. Um, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like I kind of want to play Arena, but I barely have the time to play Eternal already, so I don't know what's gonna end up happening with that. Like Arena looks interesting, but this isn't an Arena podcast, so let's move the fuck on.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to our average brew of the week. And this week we have a brew provided by some fucking tall ass bowl cut called Bad Elysian Mall.
Yeah. So yesterday, while I was on stream, I was like, I want to play with some of these cards. And I saw the bayonet, the Bear Guard bayonet, the one cost +1/+1 with overwhelm weapon. If you pledged, you get an additional power. You play that same sigil again. I thought that was really cool. And at first I was like, oh, this would go really well with Hojin. But then I thought again, and I was like, this would actually go really well with Resolute Monk. And there's already a deck where, and Sickles has pledged, doesn't he? Yep. Okay. And so I like looked into that. I looked at a mall list and I was like, okay, this is cool. There's a lot of stuff here. And then I looked at all the cards with pledge in those two colors. And I'm running. So the deck list starts off with 4 Begone. Actually, I should probably do this in terms of like units and stuff first. So for units, plays 4 Dusk Raider. Dusk Raider gives your units Berserk. Plays 4 Glasshopper, which is one of the new campaign cards. The 1/3, your units with pledge cost 1 less, which is very important. If you pledge the unit this game, create and draw a copy of that unit, which is also very important because if you have Dusk Raider out, it gains Berserk as you draw that one cost reduced spell or that one cost reduced unit. It's got Resolute Monk with Empower +2/+2 and Overwhelm. It's a 3/1 for 2. That thing is really good. Oh, there we go. It's up on the screen now. Got Teacher of Humility still in there. Gen of Merchant, Cicalis, and I had to find. This is the problem that I thought we were going to run into is finding additional pledge units that aren't terrible. So I threw in Temple Artisan, which you may not know. It's an elf mystic from Defiance. It's a 2/2 for 4 with pledge. And with Empower, you double his power and toughness this turn. Now, he's not super great because he costs 4, but with Glasshopper, he only costs 3. And with Bear Guard Bayonet, if you play that, you give him +1/+1 and Overwhelm. Then you get the power from that activation, which doubles him to a 6/6. Then if you play an actual power on top of that, he becomes a 12/12 with Overwhelm, which is pretty good.
It's pretty good.
If he also had Berserk, that's 24 damage right there. And then as my last little bit of pledge, I have Moonstone Vanguard. I think this one fits the least in the deck. However, it has actually won me a bunch of games because if the other deck is just much more aggressive, I can play this and block and gain life. And it costs 4 if you have a Glasshopper out. And then there's just like a couple of removal cards. There's Equivocate, Entangling Vines, Permafrost, and Begone. There's a cool market. You can check out the link. Jay's going to post it. I had a blast with this deck, and I ran from gold 3 to gold 1 pretty quickly, and then I just got stuck there. So that may have been because I was at like hour 12 of my stream, but I did get stuck at gold 1. So check the deck out, do some tweaking to it of your own, see if there's any changes that you'd want to make, and post a comment. Let me know exactly what you're thinking about it.
Yeah, I definitely want to check it out. Like, I think if I have some time tomorrow, I don't think I'll have time to play tonight, but if I have some time tomorrow, I wouldn't mind playing around with it a little bit, and we'll see how far I get. I unfortunately didn't get to Masters last month. I just didn't make the grind. I had kind of taken a break from the game, so I have to get through Silver 1 first.
Yeah, that's true. And maybe this will do well in Silver 1. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see. So let's move on to the streamer of the week. Why don't you take this?
Wait a minute. We didn't finish our brew.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, you're right. So the brew of the week is Becky by Platform Beer Company. It is a nice brewery up in Cleveland. It is a blueberry apple ale that uses fresh pressed local apples, gluten-free buckwheat, English cider, and the adjunct is blueberries. Go figure.
Awesome. I think that I like the idea of having a eternal brew and an actual brew of the game. My brew is Ballast Point Brewing Company. It's a Sculpin IPA. I love IPAs. This one is brewed in San Diego, California, Ballast Point Brewing Company. And that's pretty much all I know about it because it was a part of a 6-pack.
One of my favorite things about Platform is they put literally everything that goes in to their beers on the label. You can't really see that there, but then they also like give you your IBUs and your alcohol by volume. Like, so they actually have a beer that comes out. It's a session IPA that comes out in May that is, it's got like strawberry puree in it. Oh my fucking God. It's like my favorite beer in the world. I'm so
That's
ready.
awesome.
I'm so ready for it to come out. It's like late April, early May. So it's soon. All
I'm
right.
stoked, and I hope that it becomes one of the brews of the week.
It'll be the brew of like every single episode that I'm drinking it. Like, I just love it so much. It's so good. Anyways, let's move on to the streamer of the week. I'm so excited.
Streamer of the week is Kalos. Kaelos. She is phenomenal. She's a wonderful, wonderful eternal streamer. She loves to brew janky decks and play them until she gets sick of it or she can't think of any more ideas to fix them. She usually likes to put Last Word in her decks, just because that's like her favorite card. That's her little like
Frame.
Her little like
Frame.
Yes, frame for her webcam. She's super nice. She's wonderful. She's always willing to listen to pretty much any music that you can request on her stream. She got an awesome dog. Hanging out with Reckoner. You may have seen him in chat and stuff. Kalos, I think it's Kalos the Reckoner. Kalos, what's her stream name?
We're obviously very, very prepared for this podcast.
We can just cut this part a little bit. Hang on, let me find it.
No, it's staying. Oh. I want everybody to know how unprepared we are.
I think you're just lazy.
I am lazy. That doesn't change the fact that the people
Kalos
must know.
The Reckoning. Shut up. Kalos the Reckoning. Kaelos TheReckoning.
OMG.
Super great streamer. She's actually live right now. She's LGBTQIA plus positive. So I don't know if that's just like additional
everything.
Yeah, just everything. She's super positive, very inclusive person, really fun. Likes talking through her decisions. And I've actually casted ECL tournaments with her before. She's super nice, very funny.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, I would definitely give her a follow, give her a Twitch Prime sub if you got it. I don't know. Go check out Kalos.
Please go check her out. All right, so let's move on to our sign off. If you guys or gals or anything have any questions or topic suggestions for us, please leave a comment on either Reddit or in the Discord. We appreciate having things to talk about, and to be honest, like now that spoiler season is over, we're gonna have a lot more time to talk about stuff. So please, if you want us to talk about something, let us know, because we will definitely consider it as long as we think that it fits into the cast. So far, I think,
even if it doesn't really.
Yeah. I mean, like, so far we've pretty much taken every single suggestion and pushed it into a cast at some point or another. So, and sometimes we have the most fun with those topics. So please keep sending them our way. And so from there, where can they find you, Shark?
So you can find me on Twitch as TallSharkandHandsome. You can find me on Eternal as TallSharkandHandsome. You can find me on Steam, TallSharkandHandsome, Discord, TallSharkandHandsome. There will be a link to my Discord channel if you want to hang out and talk to me. That's where you can kind of talk to me between streams and between episodes if you want to actually like message me and talk to me live. On Twitter, I am at @SharkandTall because TallSharkandHandsome was too long. And I think that's everything. I don't know. Yeah. How about you? Oh, Reddit, TallSharkandHandsome. How about you, Jay?
So you guys can find me on Reddit, user JayOSU. You can find me on Discord, JayMang, either Bassoon Buffoon or Shark's Discord. Those are the two that I am most active in. You can find me on Twitter, where I literally never check, at JayOSU, and that's pretty much the only places. In game, I'm JayMang, so if you see me, don't emote at me. And that's that's really the only way you're going to get a hold of me. So send us those suggestions. Go give Shark a follow, but don't sub to him. He's not worth it. And
right, yeah, and check out that PAX East that's PAX East spreadsheet. I put a lot of work into it, and there's a lot of really cool games coming out. So go check that out too. And don't follow Jay. He smells bad, and especially if you're downwind.
I literally won't post anything anyways. So, anyways, guys, just enjoy the new campaign and stay average.